The gloves are officially off, and now the British monarchy is moving in a way nobody expected to see. For decades, they stuck to one quiet rule: never complain, never explain. But by late 2025, that rule got completely thrown out the window. What looked like simple tension between the palace and the Sussexes wasn't just a family issue. It was something way bigger.
And I felt, you're losing people every single time you have those headlines. We all get that there's a really big urgent message.
Now it's turned into a full-on institutional clash, and Prince William is right at the center of it. This isn't about personal feelings anymore. It's about protecting the crown itself. Behind the scenes, leaked memos, private letters, and intense legal moves have flipped everything upside down. And what's coming out of London is raising serious eyebrows. It all kicked off with a leak that shook Windsor to its core. Imagine private messages from some of the family's most intense years suddenly exposed to the world. These weren't random notes. They laid out what looked like a calculated strategy tied to the Duchess of Sussex between 2021 and 2023. The messages reportedly included sharp claims about King Charles, describing him as emotionally distant during a time when support mattered most. But one line stood out and instantly grabbed the attention of palace officials. It shifted how William saw his brother's situation for good. The Duchess allegedly wrote, "If Charles would not safeguard me, then the narrative will safeguard me." That single sentence hit hard inside palace walls. To them, this wasn't just someone venting. It looked like a deliberate plan, a strategy where personal stories could be shaped and used to influence public opinion against the crown. And when you're tied to an institution that's lasted over 1,000 years, reputation isn't just important, it's everything. If that reputation starts getting chipped away while someone else builds their image in the entertainment world, it stops being a private disagreement. It starts looking like a serious institutional risk. That realization landed heavily on senior royals. This wasn't just about distance within the family anymore. It pointed to something far more organized and calculated. While the public stayed focused on headlines and speculation, something much more precise was quietly unfolding behind closed doors. Inside Clarence's house, a colder, more strategic response was already being mapped out, and it was anything but emotional. King Charles, while dealing with his own health struggles, started to see that the old strategy of staying quiet and enduring everything just wasn't working anymore. So he made a bold move. Insiders say he approved something called Memo 2485, known in royal circles as the Fall Mandate. This wasn't a normal step. It was a secret-level decision that changed everything. For the first time, full control over anything connected to the Sussex situation was handed directly to the Prince and Princess of Wales. No more mixed messages, no more palace insiders giving different versions to the press. It was all about control now. It was all about one voice, one narrative, and one clear direction. And that direction was quietly being shaped by the Princess of Wales behind closed doors. Catherine wasn't just recovering, she was working strategically. While public attention stayed fixed on her health, reports suggested she was helping design the broader media approach. She understood that the monarchy's survival depends heavily on its image as a symbol of duty and service. Anything that pulled focus away from that image had to be addressed quickly and carefully. This new protocol went beyond basic public relations. It introduced structured legal standards around privilege, possible suspension, and formal procedures that could be activated if needed. The plan signaled a clear shift. The era of staying silent and absorbing public criticism was coming to an end.
It sounds like the monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda.
But before any firm action became visible to the public, there was one more attempt to ease tensions. In early October 2025, Prince William reportedly made a final effort to contact his brother. A private phone call took place between the two princes. William wasn't asking for an apology. What he wanted was a correction to the public record, especially around what he viewed as damaging claims made about his wife, Catherine. He wanted clarity, his version of how the family had actually treated Meghan to be clearly stated. But Harry's response shifted everything. Reports say Harry told him that changing the narrative now would cost him everything tied to his new life. For William, that moment closed the door. He came to see that his brother was prioritizing a public image over family ties. One of William's aides reportedly said the prince no longer feels responsible for defending his brother's position. From that point, the focus changed. This wasn't about personal frustration. It became about protecting the institution. William viewed the Sussex identity as closely tied to ongoing royal controversy, and as long as that connection stayed active, the situation would keep repeating itself. So the approach had to change. He began shaping what could be described as a boundary, legal, symbolic, and carefully structured, something that would clearly separate paths moving forward. And when it came time to introduce this shift, he chose a stage that would guarantee attention, a place where the message could not be overlooked by the media. Kensington Palace became the stage. William didn't rely on a spokesperson this time. He stood inside the picture gallery, facing the cameras himself, calm, controlled, and very direct in his delivery. The usual polished royal language was stripped back. Instead, he made a clear statement. No member of this family has harassed Mrs. Markle, nor has anyone shown preferential treatment towards my wife at her detriment. That moment stood out because of how direct it was. He wasn't speaking in vague terms. He was addressing claims head-on. He went further, linking the current situation to Meghan's own decisions and what he described as ongoing actions that challenged the institution's stability. It marked a noticeable shift in tone from the palace. But it didn't stop with words. William referenced evidence. He pointed to patterns of media activity that, according to palace tracking, involved targeted placements in U.S. outlets that affected Catherine's public image. For months, teams had reportedly been monitoring how certain stories spread, identifying PR connections and how sponsored content blended in with regular coverage. He described how amplification systems and advertising-style placements could shape perception, making narratives appear organic when they were strategically supported. This wasn't framed as random press coverage, but something more structured and deliberate. By doing this, Williams signaled a different kind of response, one that could involve legal routes. The focus was no longer just personal. It pointed toward a larger operation. And then he introduced an unexpected angle that caught even experienced royal watchers off guard. He brought up Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. He alleged that Meghan had attempted to involve Sarah's past disagreements with the family as a way to create division within royal circles. There were also claims that pressure had reached Catherine during a period when she was still undergoing cancer treatment. William described these reported actions as unacceptable, framing them as part of a broader and deliberate strategy to build internal opposition. By addressing this publicly, he removed any ambiguity around Sarah Ferguson's position and made it harder for her to be drawn into further controversy. It also sent a wider signal across the family about where lines were being drawn. The message was clear: alignment with the institution mattered more than ever. Then came one of the most striking comparisons. William spoke about accountability within the monarchy and referenced Prince Andrew as an example of how serious consequences can unfold. By drawing that parallel, he was pointing to a standard that applies across the board when reputational damage reaches a certain level. The comparison carried weight because of what it represented. Prince Andrew lost official roles, public duties, and much of his standing within the institution. Williams' remarks suggested that similar frameworks of accountability could be considered in other situations if necessary. This wasn't presented as a personal attack, but as a matter of institutional standards. The focus shifted away from personal disagreement and towards structure and responsibility. From that point forward, a new approach took shape, one centered on non-engagement. William made it known he would no longer respond to criticism coming from entertainment or media circles. He made it clear there would be no more responses to media requests involving the Duke of Sussex. The approach was simple: cut off the attention cycle at its source.
I want to create a world in which my son is proud of what we do.
If the Sussexes chose to share their story publicly, that was their decision, but it would no longer be amplified by any reaction from the royal side. Without that back and forth, palace strategists believed the narrative would gradually lose momentum. The thinking behind it was calculated. Without engagement, public interest could fade over time, especially if there was no longer a direct link to official royal responses. It was a long-term play, built built on the idea that constant repetition without new conflict would eventually lose its impact. But beyond strategy, there was a more sensitive layer to this shift. The focus briefly turned to the children, Archie and Lilibet. In a rare moment, William addressed them with a noticeably serious tone. He said they deserve stability and a childhood free from ongoing public tension. The palace later clarified that his remarks were not about any form of custody concern. Still, the statement carried weight. It signaled that attention was being paid to how the children were appearing in public narratives. By emphasizing privacy and stability, the working royals positioned themselves as defenders of that boundary. This also raised the stakes in the public arena. Continuing a strong media presence now came with added scrutiny. In the UK, early public reaction leaned heavily in William's favor, with polls suggesting strong support for a firmer approach and a more controlled response from the monarchy. Meanwhile, in the United States, reactions were far more divided. Some viewed the move as heavy-handed from a long-standing institution, while others saw it as a necessary response to what they considered a growing celebrity-driven narrative. That contrast between the UK and the US is exactly what palace officials are now trying to navigate. They understand that public opinion in entertainment circles may not fully align with their approach. Still, their priority appears to be long-term stability rather than short-term popularity. The focus is on preserving the structure of the institution, even if it means losing ground in global media perception. As attention began to settle after William's address, discussions reportedly turned toward a more serious option, referred to as Order 217. This was described not as a routine step, but as a formal proposal involving the Privy Council, potentially addressing the Sussex titles. The comparison being made highlighted how significant such a move would be in modern royal context. If fully pursued, the implications could be far-reaching. It could redefine how official roles and recognition are handled internationally, including guidance for diplomatic representation and ceremonial listings. While details remain speculative, the discussion alone signals how far the situation has escalated and how carefully the next steps are being considered. The legal obstacles behind Order W17 are serious, and palace attorneys are reportedly working non-stop to ensure any action could stand up to strict legal review. They're examining letters patent and administrative law, searching for a process that is fully structured and procedurally sound. The priority is clear: avoid anything that could turn into a public legal battle or drawn-out investigation. Instead, the goal appears to be a quiet and controlled separation. Not dramatic, not public, but handled through formal channels. It may seem like a cold approach, but from the palace perspective, it is about protecting the long-term stability of the crown. Amid all of this, the Princess of Wales maintained a steady public presence. Just days after the most intense phase of the situation, she visited a pediatric oncology center, dressed simply and wearing a symbolic anchor brooch. Observers quickly interpreted the appearance as a sign of resilience and steadiness during uncertainty. The contrast did not go unnoticed. While media activity continued from California, Catherine's public role focused on official duties and service. That difference became part of the broader narrative being shaped. One side aligned itself with responsibility and continuity, while the other remained tied to ongoing public attention. These developments mark more than just another chapter in a family dispute. They point to a shift in how the monarchy operates, moving away from quiet endurance toward a more structured and proactive approach. Under the leadership of William and Catherine, the institution has started redefining its limits. The message coming through is that even the most high-profile members are still bound by the rules of the crown. Whether this Wales-led approach will hold up over time is still uncertain, but one thing stands out clearly: the era of a softer, more reserved monarchy appears to be fading. In its place is a strategy built on transparency, structured legal action, and more direct communication. It's a bold shift. Opening up in this way brings internal tensions into public view, but it also allows the institution to shape its own narrative more actively than before. As King Charles continues to prioritize his health, attention has naturally shifted toward William's role. Some observers see this period as an early look at what his future leadership style could be. If recent developments are any indication, it may center on accountability, control, and limiting exposure to ongoing controversy. But this evolving approach goes beyond public statements and legal positioning. It also reflects what has reportedly been happening behind closed doors. Inside Windsor Castle, an emergency-level meeting brought together senior advisors, legal experts, and specialists focused on institutional risk. The setting was far from ceremonial. It was a focused, high-level discussion about long-term stability. With Lady Fiona Walsingham overseeing the session, the group examined more than media strategy. The core issue was how to maintain the strength of a constitutional monarchy while adapting to the pressures of a fast-moving digital world. They came to see that, in the modern era, a powerful narrative can carry as much impact as any major political shift. From that point, the approach changed. The Sussex media operation was no longer viewed as informal press attention, but as something more structured, closer to a coordinated external force. This shift led to a detailed effort to track media connections and patterns. Palace teams began analyzing how certain stories appeared, including the role of sponsored placements and native-style content in US outlets. What once looked like scattered coverage was now being examined as part of a broader system. By the time William delivered his statement at Kensington Palace, he wasn't speaking off instinct. He was backed by compiled data, timelines, and a legal framework designed to hold up under scrutiny. The preparation reflected a move away from reactive messaging towards something far more methodical. The response from California followed quickly. Within days of the Kensington address, a new wave of media activity began to surface. Analysts described it as a structured, multi-phase reaction. The first phase focused on personal accounts, with stories appearing in major US outlets describing Meghan's experiences and her perspective on how she had been treated within the institution. This time, the palace didn't stay quiet. They responded quickly with a firm denial, signaling a clear shift in how they would handle ongoing claims. The message was direct. They were no longer willing to let widely circulated, commercially driven narratives go unanswered. It marked a break from their traditional silence and showed a more active approach to public messaging. That response appeared to put pressure on the Sussex communication strategy. What followed was described as a second phase, centered on reinvention. Media coverage began highlighting new ventures, including health-related projects, children's books, and documentary content focused on generational experiences. The shift seemed aimed at repositioning Meghan's public image toward independence and business leadership. However, the palace's evolving strategy created new challenges for that transition. By tightening control over official royal associations through administrative measures, they reduced the strength of any narrative tied directly to royal identity. Without that connection, certain storylines carried less influence in public perception. At the same time, reactions continued to differ across regions. In the United Kingdom, support for William's more assertive approach remained strong. In contrast, perspectives in the United States and parts of the Commonwealth were more mixed. In the US especially, themes of personal independence and openly sharing one's experiences tend to resonate strongly. That cultural difference has made the overall situation more complex, with audiences interpreting the same events through very different lenses. Some observers viewed the palace's actions as overly forceful, but the Wales strategy had already factored that in. The goal was never to win over audiences in Los Angeles. The priority was maintaining long-term constitutional stability in London. The thinking was that constant public back and forth would eventually wear thin, and that steady, consistent duty would outlast the noise. At the center of this situation is the complex legal discussion around Order 217. Adjusting royal titles is not a simple administrative step. It involves letters patent, the removal of honorary roles, and careful navigation through constitutional law. Legal experts have compared the scale of the situation to some of the most significant moments in modern royal history. What makes this moment different is the framing. In the past, major royal shifts often centered on personal decisions. Here, the focus appears to be on institutional preservation. The challenge now is how to handle individuals who remain royals by birth, while their official roles and recognitions are being reconsidered through formal processes. It creates a complicated legal space, one that may take considerable time to fully define. Questions around diplomatic recognition, ceremonial roles, and formal status are all part of that ongoing discussion. Throughout all of this, Catherine's role has drawn increasing attention. Her influence is seen as steady and measured, particularly during uncertain moments. In one reported private exchange, she expressed a clear position, stating, "I forgive her, but I will not accept her suffering as my duty." That one sentence has come to represent the mindset of this new phase of the monarchy. It blends personal understanding with firm institutional control. Catherine isn't stepping into conflict, but she's also not allowing herself to be placed in a passive role anymore. By focusing on her public work, her consistency, and her calm presence, she has built an image of steady leadership while media attention continues to shift elsewhere. She is shaping a legacy centered on stability and long-term purpose. The stakes around this shift are extremely high. If William and Catherine succeed, they could redefine the monarchy for a new era, moving it away from personal drama and toward a more structured and resilient institution. If they fall short, the risk is a loss of credibility, where the royal image becomes overshadowed by constant public spectacle. Looking at the direction coming out of Kensington Palace, the path seems firmly set. This is no longer about quiet resolutions or behind-the-scenes fixes. The approach now is open, deliberate, and clearly defined. A line has been drawn, and it is not subtle. The message stands strong. The crown is no longer just a symbol. It is an institution prepared to protect its place in a rapidly changing world. If you made it this far, drop a comment with your thoughts. Hit like if you found this interesting, and don't forget to subscribe and share so you don't miss what comes next.